So without any further ado, tonight's theme is emotional well-being, emotional resilience. And the question we are sort of posing, how do we overcome life's challenges? And obviously, you know, we're all in lockdown. We've all spent 10 months, it feels like, in lockdown, coping with the response to the COVID crisis. And it will pass. We have hopes and confidence that it will pass. But there's no question that it will leave a legacy. And certainly the three big aspects of legacy that people are talking about, number one is mental health and emotional resilience. Number two is the economy and employment. And number three is children and young people, because they have been greatly affected in terms of their educational, personal development, and all families obviously with that. So our first speaker this evening, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Laura Dunn from Queen's University. Laura is a chartered psychologist and senior lecturer in the social science, education, social work, my alma mater, Laura. So Laura's going to kick off and talk for about 10 minutes. And then I'm delighted we're going to hand over to someone who'll be no stranger to anybody in East Belfast, Dr. John Kyle, a wellbeing ambassador, if there was one. So I suppose from his general practitioner perspective, no better person to get a take on how he sees and what he sees coming in through his door and advice that he would give. And then also someone who's a very familiar face to you all, Linda Armitage. And Linda's been working in community health and wellbeing for, I was going to say longer than I can remember, Linda, but you're not that old. So really, and I know Linda's got some really practical information and advice for you this evening. And then also Ashley from Alternatives, Ashley Roberts, who brings the demographic of our whole group into a healthy perspective. Ashley works with young people in East, and again, given that that's a key group that we'd be concerned about, really interested in what you have to say, Ashley. So Laura, can I hand over to you? I know you've got a few slides. I don't think any of our other speakers have slides, but Laura, you've got some slides. If you'd like to kick off, we're really interested in what you have to say to us. You're muted at the minute, Laura.
I should be.
That's you, great.
Let me know, that's okay. And apologies, I'm used to using Teams, so I hope, can you see my slides okay?
Not yet. Can you do share screen?
Screen again.
Laura, I have your presentation here, so I can put it up for you if that helps.
Oh, super, that's even better. That's even better. Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So first of all, thank you so much for having me along. I was kind of thinking, am I a bit of an imposter here in the gang? But I have worked a bit in East Belfast to do with Bernardo's Ready to Learn programme. We evaluated that a few years ago in some of the schools, particularly spent some time in Avoneel and Elmgrove. And I've been in Belfast for 25 years now, and I have a Belfast husband and 2 Belfast daughters. So I think I'm nearly a native. So if you just pop on to the next slide there. Anne has already introduced me. And as you know, I work at Queen's. We love working in partnership with communities, and I particularly work with Ruth Hunter in public health. And I know Ruth can't be here tonight, but I do a lot of my work with her. So if I can go on to the next one, Michelle, thank you. So again, it's terrible being an academic. I can't go anywhere without slides, but they're really just to help me to remember what I'm supposed to be saying. What I wanted to do this evening was just give you a tiny bit of background about me, but also sort of the Queen's role. A quick word on what I think well-being means in terms of my research. Some of the things that research is telling us, and some of the responses that we might make in the community as a result of that research knowledge there as well. So they're the main areas that I'm going to talk about. In terms of myself, as Anne already introduced me there, but I have a very broad interest in child development, health and well-being. I do a lot of work in schools across the UK, do a lot of evaluations of programs in schools. So when we put in programs around literacy or numeracy, or even things like, you know, giving breakfast to school children, things like that, we like to design experimental ways of testing if things work, because we have a very strong belief that there's absolutely no point in spending resource on stuff that doesn't work. And I think we've seen that over the years. So that's a big part of what I'm interested in. And beyond that, I work in several low and middle income countries as well. So what well-being, for example, means here in Northern Ireland and what it might mean in Mali or Vietnam can be very different things. And I see with Chris Jenkins here as well. So I know he's familiar with that kind of landscape as well. So I'll hop on to the next slide there, Michelle. Thank you. So in terms of what well-being means, you could find many, many definitions in the literature. And when we try to write sort of summary documents about this, we get very stuck, because it's such a ubiquitous term. We all talk about well-being and we all mean different things. And if you come from law or politics or bill or health, they can mean very different things. I suppose in my work, I think about objective well-being. So things that we think should matter, like perhaps your gender or where you live or how much money you have, things like that. Then on the other hand, there's a more subjective view. So we often talk about how, you know, how do I feel? How do I feel my life is going? How well are things going for me? So although I work with some of our young children and mothers and communities in different settings, I'm thinking really about our teenagers at the moment. And you can get very different views of life when you ask them themselves. We never really saturate ourselves, because there's always something new to learn. So you can see here, I've given a few examples of well-being definitions. The one I like best is probably the weird one, a state of positive mental health and wellness. And I know that there are other people on the call who will, of course, have their own views as well. So sometimes we think that if you don't have mental health issues, that you must have good well-being, and that's not necessarily the case. So well-being can be, you know, something that's very positive and needs to be nurtured and cared for and monitored, in my view, as well. So on to the next slide there, please, Michelle. So one of the things then that people say is, but can you measure well-being? Well, we do a lot of that in our work, and I'm going to, the reason also that I put up the few slides was that I'm happy for these to be shared with anybody who wants to look at them. So we've some brilliant work that goes on in Northern Ireland. Some of these happen every year. So we have our Kids Life and Times looks after our P7 kids. Young Life and Times is 16-year-olds. And the one at the top there, the young or the wellbeing in schools, we've done that on a few occasions with about half of our post-primary school population across Northern Ireland. And these links, when you look at them, you can actually find question modules or areas of interest. And it's really fascinating to see how trends change over time. So some of the work we've been doing recently with colleagues in public health about smoking prevention, we haven't quite cracked the smoking problem, but when you look back at smoking prevalence rates in years gone by, you can really see the direction of travel in terms of things to do with public health, the crossover with the social sciences. In some of my other work, I do research in my own settings, but I love supervising PhD projects. And the really good thing about those is that I work with my friends in public health, social science, even in business management, to look at cost effectiveness. So how much does something cost to deliver? How worthwhile is it when you weigh it up against how effective it is? And again, that allows us to connect up with our colleagues from public health, particularly in my work. The other thing I do a great deal of is systematic review. And really, that's just gathering together all the information that we have on a topic. So instead of pointing at one article and saying, this tells us all we need to know about young people in a particular area, we'll gather together a ton of stuff. And if you imagine it like a funnel, so everything goes into the funnel and we distill out. I can see Chris smiling because it's not really that simple, but we sort of distill out the key messages. And it's a terrific way of checking that we're not missing important stuff. So that's just some of the ways that we measure and look at well-being in our research work. And if I can go on to the next one there. So some of the big issues for our children, which is actually the slide just before that one. Sorry, Michelle. So one of the things that we are all consumed with at the moment is COVID-19. And our young people have been living with this, and the word unprecedented has been overused, I know, this year. But we think about the loneliness, the isolation, the sort of things that teenagers are struggling with and going through. Many of them are going through them with an extra layer of difficulty at the moment, sitting in their rooms, isolated, without their peer group to bounce things off. And I say that as a mum of two teenage girls here. So it can be a roller coaster at times, for sure. So some of the items, I would use a scale called Kidscreen 52 a lot. And when you divide out all of these 52 measures, there's these key headlines, sort of categories or domains of things that we find from Kidscreen. And you can see some of them there are pretty obvious: the physical and psychological well-being and emotional health. One of the things that we see more and more is self-image and comparison being a really big issue, particularly with our teenage girls. We also find our teenage girls, from some of the data we collect, tend to fall away a little bit from physical activity as they go up the teenage years. So some of that stress release activity, it's harder to nurture and to keep going. In terms of autonomy or control, one of the key messages of this time for young people is, we're always saying to them, tell us what you can control and what you can't, because you can do something about choosing to exercise, choosing to ignore, comparisons with other people and things like that. There's other things you can't. So I think autonomy is a huge theme at the moment. And of course, the relationships within your home are absolutely key at this time, because now more than ever, we're forced on top of each other. And there's a lot of, sort of joking and memes and fun about this. But if you're in a household where times are tough or indeed abusive, you're faced with a significant challenge. I believe that money is important in terms of giving us choices, but it's only important up to a certain level. But if you're in straitened financial conditions, that doesn't make any of this easier either. Social support is so important to our young people, and you'll see I've got a star at that one. I'll come back to that in a second. The school environment is something that our young people value hugely, and I've just finished, I've just had a PhD student finish who was finding in a piece of work she did about school, it came out as quite a surprise how very important school identity, even the school grounds are, and where you hang out with your friends. Social acceptance continues to be important, and that links to our social media use as well. And the reason I had starred that social support and peers, of all of these areas, the only one where girls got better scores than boys in our WISE data collection, the Wellbeing in Schools data collection, was in peer support, or sorry, social support and peers. So there are definitely areas where our teenage girls are struggling a little bit more, and we've identified that quite regularly in the data that we collect. So the other thing then is that social networks really matter, and I'll just go on to my last slide and I can outline some of those ideas about where we go from identifying these issues. So I'll just move on to the last slide now. And, oh, sorry, that one there, what makes life better? So we know that early intervention works and is effective. Sometimes people think early intervention, they picture, a baby in a cradle, and, that this is the only time we can effectively intervene. That is a really important thing to do. And we know that that leads to much better long-term outcomes for an individual. But early intervention can just mean intervening early when a problem is identified. And I think that's the message for our young people, is to keep talking. When there's an issue, find that trusted person. If it's not safe in your home, sometimes I used to say to my ones, to take 5, think of 5 people that you can trust, that you can talk to, whether it's your auntie or your mum's best friend, whoever it is, that they can identify the problem early on and help can be identified. Family and friends.
Sorry, a couple more minutes.
That's okay. Family and friends are hugely important, and I think we all know that. But so also are formal and informal sources of support. So I know we have Dr. Kyle on the webinar tonight. Our local GPs are so important. People rely very heavily on them, as many, particularly younger women, rely on their health visitor when they have their kids and things like that. But we also rely, for good or for bad, on advice that we're given by aunties and mums. Whether it's right or wrong, we often take on board those informal sources. So I think kind of getting people teed up. So when a young person asks for support, sometimes you need to go and check your facts, or maybe say, look, I will find out and I'll get back to you. But having that support is very important. We know from a lot of research that being outside is good for you. And when young ones at this time, trying to get them out when it's kind of half dark and wet, it's not easy, but it's worth dragging them out because everybody feels better for that bit of exposure. And as I mentioned in the last slide, this sense of belonging in your community, and I think you're exactly the right people to come to on that score, is extremely important. Feeling lost and unimportant and that your views don't count is the worst place that you can be as a young person. And then my very final point, and apologies, I could talk on any one of these at any time if anybody's interested further. Social media use, and myself and Ruth Hunter have just finished a PhD with a student on this. It's a very mixed bag. Yes, children are absolutely exhausted at school after being up half the night, and there's all sorts of things that go on, but they're a huge vehicle for positive connection and information and learning as well. So I think it's very important that we are very careful about how we make decisions about social media use and be very cautious about that going forward. So that's me for now. I'm delighted to join in any conversations, but sorry, it was a bit of a whistle stop tour.
No, look, you've really covered so many things there. We could spend the rest of the evening talking about every bullet point there, Laura, and thank you so much for such a clear presentation. I think some of those points you made as well apply not just to children and young people. I think we could all identify with the benefits of some of the points that you made, particularly in the last slide. But I'm going to hand the baton over now to Dr. John Kyle, as you mentioned, GP in East Belfast and involved in many community health initiatives. So John, would you like to pick it up, please, and carry on from Laura?
Yes, Anne, thank you very much. Delighted to do this. And Laura, thank you for your presentation. I think that mine will follow on from it. Working as a GP, people come to you for all sorts of reasons, but oftentimes there is an element of emotional stress, psychological pressure, mental health issues. And when they come, they often expect to walk out with a prescription and think that there's something they can take that can solve the problem. But in actual fact, when it comes to emotional resilience and good mental health, there's a huge amount that people can do before they resort to taking tablets and medication. And in fact, those things are often much more important than actually taking medication. So I'm going to touch on three of them. And the first is the importance of having a sense of purpose. If you are doing something that you believe in, that you're passionate about, if you're doing work that you enjoy, if you're doing something that you think makes a difference, something that benefits other people, that makes a huge difference to your emotional resilience. It can be work, but it doesn't have to be work. It can be carrying responsibilities. It can be befriending people. It can be an interest. It can be a hobby. It can be gardening. It can be looking after pets, a dog. It can be being creative. But if you do something that gives you a sense of purpose, that generates good mental well-being, and it gives you emotional resilience. I have a neighbour who works in one of the COVID units, and I was talking to him a couple of days ago, and I said, well, how are things? How's the mental health? And he said, his answer was very interesting. He said, actually, my mental health's fine. I've got lots of hobbies. And that is very telling comment. And if you've got things that you enjoy doing, that is beneficial in terms of your mental health. And volunteering, if your job isn't something that gives you a sense of purpose and satisfaction, volunteering, or if you're unemployed, or if you're made redundant, or if you're retired, that's an option that will give you a sense of purpose and will be clearly beneficial. Second area to touch on is the benefits of natural light. And natural light is so important, and we oftentimes don't realize it. I would, when I was a GP, I would go in and visit people, and they'd be in houses that might be in the shadow of high hedges, small windows, poorly lit, curtains drawn. And when you think, how could anybody feel well living in this dark environment? It's recognized that workers who are exposed to natural light also tend to be more active, more physically fit. They're more productive. They enjoy their work more. And it has beneficial effects on their mood, on their alertness, and on their metabolism. So our moods are affected by natural light. Our sleep is improved. If you're out during the day in natural light, you will sleep better at night. One of the tricks that we used to use, or one of the treatments that we used to recommend, was, why don't you go out for a walk in the morning or over lunchtime? If you've got a half an hour for lunch, take 15 minutes to go out for a walk in daylight, and your sleep will be better. And sleep is restorative. During sleep, the body repairs itself. It fights off infection. It processes the events of the day. And so if you're living, if you allow yourself to be in natural light, whether it's working beside a window, whether it's being outdoors, then you benefit in terms of your emotional well-being, in terms of your mental health. It also improves your vitamin D levels, by the way, which is quite useful in these days of COVID-19. But it synchronizes body and brain, and it gets our internal biological rhythms in sync. My tip is, if you're living in a house, you've got a south-facing room, live in the south-facing room. If you've got a south or southeast-facing bedroom, sleep in the southeast-facing bedroom. To wake up in the morning with the sun coming in makes a huge difference to many of us, and it certainly does to me. And then thirdly and finally, you'll not be surprised that it's the area of exercise, which Laura again referred to. The benefits of exercise are enormous. The physical benefits are enormous. So almost every system in your body benefits from physical exercise, but also your mental well-being is dramatically affected by physical exercise. So they say that moderate regular physical exercise is as effective as antidepressants in terms of treating depression. So it releases endorphins, and it doesn't have to mean you don't have to pump iron. Moderate physical exercise, almost any physical exercise is beneficial. So moderate physical exercise, rhythmic exercise. So it's better to go out for a brisk walk than to walk the dog, because you're stopping and starting, stopping, starting. But moderate physical exercise, rhythmic exercise is beneficial. And even better is exercise close to nature. The old green gym, do it outdoors. The thing about being outdoors is that being outdoors is beneficial in terms of dealing with stress, in terms of lifting your mood. I mean, you never see cows rushing, do you? You never see trees stressed, at least not that we can detect. And so if you're out with nature, it has a de-stressing effect on you. I mean, research shows that having flowers in a hospital ward improves patients' recovery. Even a painting of a landscape or a photograph of a landscape in your room gives you benefit in terms of your mental health and in terms of stressing. And even better than exercise outdoors in nature is exercise with company outdoors in nature. And that is even better. So there's so many things that we can do in terms of our lifestyle that protect us in terms of in terms of our mental well-being, that help us to deal with stress, or that can help us to correct depression, low mood, anxiety, fear, all those black dogs that come along and intimidate us. So I think that's maybe my time up. But those are the three areas that I think have significant benefit in terms of emotional resilience.
Excellent, John. Thank you so much for that. You provoked quite a bit of chat there as well on the chat line. So I'm going to come back to some of those contributors after we have heard from all our speakers this morning, but this evening. It's only 7 o'clock. So purpose, light, and exercise. Brilliant. Linda Armitage. Linda, can I ask you to pick it up from there? And I think there'll be a seamless build here somehow.
Yes, good evening, everybody. This all feels very strange, being a guest. I know most of you, so some of the story that I'll tell will be familiar, but I also want to keep you engaged because I've been Zooming all day. I don't know about you. So before I start, this is what you need. You need a piece of paper and a pen, and the paper needs to be as big as your hand. Okay, so you can have a few seconds to get that if you want. You don't have to participate, and there are no prizes. Okay, but so that's all I'm saying for now, and then I'll refer to the paper as we go. So the message I want to give tonight is, and it is only a few minutes, so very happy to follow up with any of this afterwards. I want to share the story of how ABCDA, East Belfast Community Development Agency, is trying to help build emotional resilience locally, and also raise awareness of trauma. Now, that all sounds very serious, but I want to actually bring a bit of the fun element to it. So as I'm talking, the first thing I want to do is to introduce you to the Take 5 Steps to Wellbeing campaign. But you already know those messages, I'm guessing. But just so that you really know them, what you need to do now is to put your hand on your piece of paper and draw around it like you were in probably nursery school, okay? So you end up with a hand on your paper, visual aid. Okay, so just keep your pen at the ready as I talk through. So ABCDA started the Take 5 campaign a while back with 10 community groups who have approached this campaign in different ways. And some of you are on the screen and could tell a much better story than me, but it's trundling along. Campaign's probably a bit of a strong word, but the 5 messages are: get your pen ready if you don't know them. On top of each finger, you might want to write each one. So the first one is give, take notice, connect, be active, and keep learning. I'll repeat those, and then you've got your basis for the next bit. So give, take notice, connect, be active, keep learning. Okay, so keep those in mind, and this follows on very much from what John was saying as well. The keep learning one for me is something, when I was introduced to these messages, they're not new. You probably already do them, but it's good to have them in your head, because it is, whenever things are tough, it's good to have things to fall back on, like the purpose that John talked about. I tried to learn something new every year. Haven't decided what that is this year. Last year during COVID, I tried the hula hoop, and some of you were kept up to date with those. It was successful for a time, but hula hooping outside, a weighted hula hoop, was good fun and lots of frustration. But so it's good to try new things, and this is what I want to talk about tonight. So the 10 groups so far in East Belfast who are taking part, they've all approached this very differently, and ABCDA staff have been there to support how they're going to do it. And so we do it at 3 levels. So personally, you as an individual, how do you look after yourself? Then secondly, in your organisation, your volunteers, your staff, and the groups that you work with, how are those Take 5 messages that you wrote down, how are those weaved through the day-to-day work? And then the third level would be, and are you trying to tell those messages out to the people who are your neighbours out in the community? Now, the groups already were doing excellent work with people, doing lots of really good things. And it's just a matter of bringing those messages to life in what you're already doing. And sometimes going for a walk along the Greenway, you could actually be covering all 5 at the same time, but that's for you to discover. So we supported the groups. We've done lots of different things, stress management, lots, depending on what the group wanted. And we're not alone in that. Other people have contributed to that too as we work in partnership. But it's a great opportunity to have a go at new things. And then hopefully some of those things become habits. And then that whole chore of doing exercise, I'm speaking personally, I don't like exercising, but when you find something you like and it becomes fun, it does help. And whenever you have those days, whenever they're a bit dull, or, you know, it is nice to have something where you can think just about yourself and get lost in the activity. So I would be a great advocate for having fun, as most of you know me. So what I want you to do is, on the hand that you've drawn round, I want you to think about something that you will write in each of the fingers, okay? And I'm going to refer it to the Greenway because that's what we're focusing on. So maybe for Be Active, you might want to join the STEP challenge that the Greenway are offering. For Keep Learning, maybe you'll want to explore a part of the Greenway that you haven't been to before, and make sure you read all the signs because there's good information on it. I did it recently and learned a whole lot. You want to connect, socially distance, of course, and go and have a chat and have that whole thing about making sure you talk to other people. It's a good thing to do. Take notice as you cycle, walk along the Greenway. What are the seasons? Look at the sky. My mum taught me always to look up. I stand at the back door every night and look up at the stars, the sky. I love it. And it does your heart good on a day especially that has been really hard. And then the last one there is to give. And you might want to give your time, see Jackie, the volunteer. Even my son is doing it. I'm amazed. It's great. But I just wanted to mention that quickly because of a couple more sentences to go. And that would just be that I really feel that this Take 5 campaign is a foundation for what we're trying to do to build emotional resilience. EBCDA hope to work with community groups locally, and we have a draft of emotional resilient framework. It's very simple, but it will become alive as we work with the groups. And again, EBCDA will help provide a menu of options for people to maybe go a little bit deeper to understand trauma a little bit. And that could be something simple like, how do you answer the phone of your organization? Or how do you greet people so that you always welcome people and put them at ease? And again, when you're speaking to people, remember, you don't know what type of day somebody has had. So it is good to be kind. And I think EBCDA also will offer some coaching, some self-care, and again, we'll work in partnership with others to provide this. A lot of the resources that exist out there about that emotional resilience, to bounce back, to know how do you cope in hard times. There's a lot of support in East, and we have a new health app being launched soon, and that should help provide some of your services for others. But I'm finishing off, but before I finish, so that you remember everything that I said, and it's about the Greenway, you've got 10 seconds to find something, and if you know me at all, find something green that's near you, and you've 10 seconds, bring it to the screen. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, yes. Oh, we're nearly all there. Even flashing lights that are great. Lovely, right? Put it down in front of you. So whenever you see something green, I think I want to just emphasize John's message, that sense of purpose and natural light and exercise, the Take 5 messages. How can we work together to make East a place that's full of emotionally resilient people? And we can only do that when we work together. And we have a post out at the minute, and I hope that we get that filled. It's looking at emotional resilience. Closing date's not yet. So if you know anyone interested in that, please encourage them to apply. I'm happy to answer questions later on, but hopefully that has helped a familiar message get into your head. Thank you very much for listening.
Brilliant, Linda. I judge these things if I take away one practical idea, and you've given me 5. So I really appreciate that. Also, I think EBCDA should give you your own podcast, Linda, because you're very motivational. It's excellent. Thank you so much. Our last contributor of the night, but definitely not least, is Ashley Roberts. And Ashley's been involved in youth work in East Belfast for about 15 years. She works as a restorative practitioner with East Belfast Alternatives, and some of you might know that organisation and the work that they do. And also I'm interested to know that she's the chair of the Youth Practitioners Forum, which is working in collaboration with a range of organisations. So Ashley, delighted that you give up some time this evening, and just if you'd take 5 minutes or so and just tell us about your work and your views on this topic.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. I know some of you, but not all of you. So I work with young people mainly on a one-to-one basis, engaging with young people who need support or are at risk of getting involved in antisocial behaviour. Friday and Saturday evenings, you'll see me in East Belfast on street work with the East Belfast street work team on the Greenway and throughout the streets of East Belfast, just engaging with young people who are out and about, hanging out with their friends on a Friday and Saturday evening, sometimes maybe getting involved in antisocial behaviour and sometimes not. But it's great to engage with them, and I love just talking to young people and seeing what their experiences are and what their experiences have been. I'm a youth worker, and I have realised that I'm not a young person anymore. So whenever I was invited to talk about young people and emotional resilience, I thought I need to get perspectives of young people. So I've chatted to a few of my young people this week and got a bit of their perspectives of how they feel they're emotionally resilient, and in particular how they have dealt with COVID over the last several months. So the message has been clear for the last several months: stay home, stay safe. And just as Laura had mentioned at the start, for some young people, home is not a safe place, with many living with parents with addiction issues, or even in small houses where there's several siblings living on top of one another. It's not a comfortable place for a lot of young people, especially when you're a youth worker trying to do one-to-ones with young people on Zoom or on phone calls, and they just can't really get a private space to even be able to talk to you. So I've heard about it's really good for people to find someone to talk to and confide in, but I'm finding that young people are actually finding it really hard to even get a safe space or a space to be able to talk to anybody. So some young people are actually young carers who look after their parents, and I've seen that more and more actually over the years. So they're maybe looking after their parents for numerous different reasons, and without their daily interaction with their peers in school or in youth clubs, they're actually finding it really difficult to feel supported. So one young person that I work with, this is their situation. And they said they feel lonely. They're an only child, and they have to look after their mum due to their mum's health. They chat to their friends on their PlayStation, and they find that's really helped them, but it's not the same as in person. They say their sleeping pattern is all over the place because they're up late gaming, but they're up late so they can talk to their mates. And we've talked about how sleeping is really important, and I have found with young people, it's really hard to get them into that routine. And that's an example of they're gaming late, and it's because they want that interaction with their friends. Other young people, though, have had different experiences where they have found being at home and not having the routine of school has actually enabled them to take more responsibility for their own education and become more independent. I find that surprising, but one of my young people, 16-year-old male, has said that they've actually enjoyed the more flexible schedule from online schooling. Less socialising with their friends and family has actually made them more independent and having a lifestyle closer to a university student. They've enjoyed the freedom that came with that. For some young people who struggle with anxiety and with school can be a really anxious place for some. They may have been bullied quite a lot in school, and so even the act of going out their front door, getting on their school bus and going to school can be a really, really big deal. One of the young people that I work with at the minute, this has been their experience. So they actually have coped really well over the last several months because they have been away from school and they have feel like they've been a safe place in their house, and it's helped them to focus on their GCSEs without feeling anxious. So for many young people, their teenage years are a hive of activity, of school, of youth clubs, of sports clubs, of socialising with friends. And these are places that for many are an outlet for young people to be able to develop, to grow, to mature, to stay healthy, and to be able to cope with life pressures, and to be able to talk to an adult and a trusting adult. Young people are missing these, and some are struggling. But actually, what I'm finding is the majority are coping. They're finding ways to creatively stay connected to each other and to the world around them. Check out TikTok. And if you don't know what TikTok is, ask any young person around you, and I'm sure they will love to explain it to you. So these experiences of young people highlight that no two young people are the same. They don't have the same experience. They haven't had the same experience over the last couple of months. For some, they find solace in their own company. For others, they feel they need their friends to feel supported. Young people in general, they're bored, struggling to understand COVID, the restrictions, and for many, believe it or not, they actually do want to be back at school. Young people often have been painted in a bad light over these last several months, with social media posts and the media highlighting them not adhering to restrictions and gathering in large groups. Yes, this has happened, but it's not all young people. A lot are adhering to restrictions or staying indoors and are looking after their vulnerable friends and family. We don't know what the long-term emotional impact will be on young people, but one thing that I've learned is we need to actually look to young people for the creative solutions to isolation. They have found ways to stay connected to one another, to keep learning and to support one another. And I've actually been really inspired by that. So thank you for listening.
Wow, honest to goodness, I think all four of our speakers tonight certainly have blown me away, and going by the chat and the columns, you're all being fired up in terms of the ideas that they're presenting and the insights that they're sharing. We've got about 10 minutes for a bit of chat because we want to finish off with some information about an opportunity in the Greenway, on the Greenway, that would both give purpose, light, exercise, and is targeted at young people. So I'm going to bring Jackie in a few minutes on that. But I can see chat there thanking all our speakers for their contribution this evening. I want to bring in Andrew Hazard, who put a post up early on about social prescribing. Andrew, I'm not sure if everybody knows what social prescribing is. And then I want to come back to Ashley and maybe Laura and get some thoughts on them about what practical ways can we support our young people. And, you know, Ashley, you'd be familiar with all the stuff that's going on in East Belfast, but what can we be doing more of? But John, if you'd pick, or Andrew, if you'd ask your question about social prescribing, maybe John would respond to that, and then come to Laura and Ashley about young people.
Thanks, Anne. I mean, my question was quite simple. I mean, John brought it to mind, the role of social prescribing, particularly from GPs and practice nurses, for people to do things to help their well-being. Now, Linda did come back and answer part of that question, so maybe John and Linda would both like to comment on it.
Yep, thank you, John. Would you go first, and Linda will bring you in?
Yes. So I suppose social prescribing is prescribing treatments or measures that are not to do with drugs and medication. I suppose that the pioneer of it was the practice in Bromley by Bow in London, which began to prescribe that patients should spend an hour a week in the local allotment, or they should go to a pottery class, or they should join a reading group. And things like that. So activities that were constructive and helpful, that were done often and usually in company with others, that would give people a sense of purpose, but also put them in a context where they were able to talk. They could reflect, they could de-stress, and they could do something creative. So there's a huge range, a sort of menu of different activities that are therapeutic, that are not drug-based, medicine-based, and that are done usually in company with others, and they've been shown to be beneficial and also very economically beneficial as well. You know, that they're really good from a health economist point of view, really good value for money, but from the patient's point of view, they're very beneficial. Linda, you do it. Now, the person who does social prescribing can take over and explain what it really is.
Well, thanks, John. I suppose just quickly to say, the Bobby by Bow model act was great. I visited it many decades ago, but it was GPs actually prescribing pottery, visits to the allotment. I think our setup in Belfast, we have a connected community care hub with lots of people, health workers who are in there that GPs can refer into, and then those workers in the hub then prescribe out to the like of some of the programs that EBCDA run, the Greenway. Obviously, EBCDA and the Greenway have worked together for a long time, and some of the solutions, like even some of the physios in Hollywood Arches come and tell a walk. The dementia work, people come to the dementia navigator in the hub would come to Jackie and Davina doing the dementia-friendly walk. So, I mean, there's, no matter what centre's there is something out in the community that it's basically a menu of options that locally people can do, and it's bringing those Take 5 options alive. Whether it's yoga, could be circus skills, it could be absolutely anything. And I think our role in the community sector is to help provide that sector, that menu of options, and that's why the sector is so valued. So hopefully that helps.
Excellent. And again, you know, just lots of information being provided tonight, folks. I mean, some of it you may be aware of, you may know of, but maybe it's helping you make connections about possibilities that we could be exploiting more. Laura and Ashley, I was hoping that you might say a little bit more about what do you think practically needs to be done to help young people, particularly if we know them either personally or in a community perspective. So maybe give Laura, bring you in first, and then Ashley finish with you. Would that be okay, please? Laura?
No problem at all. Can you hear me okay there? Yeah?
Yeah, perfect.
I think what I would have to say is probably if we were all doing a bit more like Ashley was doing, I think her insights are extraordinary. We need to stop demonising young people, particularly teenagers, and describing them as some sort of tribe that's out to, ruin everything. They're not at all. I'm telling you, I think that our young people have shown maturity beyond certainly what the last couple of generations has had to. I know that some of the older generation have had terrible trials in their early lives, but definitely, I mean, what we've expected of them is no mean feat at all. And I wouldn't like to think of me as a 16-year-old, how well I would have complied and adhered. So I think we just need to stop with this, and the media is responsible for terrible slating of all young people with the same brush. So I think we need to be careful. The other thing, and again, it's a bit more of Ashley, it's listen. Listen to them and learn from them. Things, and again, the social media stuff like TikTok and Snapchat, it's absolutely fascinating. And the ways that I find young people are communicating, being creative, sharing, supporting each other are actually really cool and very empathetic and compassionate and caring. They provide incredible support for each other. And sometimes they don't want to let you into that world. And maybe they shouldn't to a large extent. But if you sit with them for a while and hang out with them for a little while, sometimes you get in there. So that's engagement and listening and learning from them, I think, would be the main things. And when they do start to transition back into real life again, I think we should be kind, because they haven't had an easy time. So expect a few broken curfews and a few things like that for the first while. But my goodness, they've been starved of all the things that teenagers should be out enjoying.
100%. I mean, it's so much part of their personal development to have those experiences, and it's been a very normal year. A lot of listening for everybody, actually, when we come out of this, to share stories and hear about people's experiences. Ashley, you're getting rave reviews here in the chat line, which is brilliant. But I think people really appreciate the insights that you've brought this evening. So from your perspective, what are your thoughts, just to build on what Laura said?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Laura, about just listening to young people and actually allowing them to have a voice. I think even as a youth worker and as youth workers, a lot of us speak for young people rather than actually like letting them speak for themselves and encouraging that journey. And I know through my youth work journey, that's something that I've been really challenged on. And I am quite passionate about allowing the platform for young people to actually be heard and have their voices heard, and for them to be part of the conversation of, okay, when things open up, like, what do we do? How do we get back to normal? And how do we actually, what do we do with education? You know, have young people even had a say in that? And actually just creating those opportunities for young people who don't normally get those opportunities, because sometimes maybe for young people who would be very academic, they're given those opportunities because they might be articulate, but a lot of young people who aren't given those opportunities have a lot to say. All young people have a lot to say, but a lot of them actually do want their voices heard. So I think there's something in of actually just creating an opportunity for young people to have their voices heard.
You're saying something really important there about, you know, us all thinking now we will come out of this, you know, whether it's June or, you know, the summer or September. But one of the things that's characterized this experience for everybody, it seems always to have been very reactive. And we've all been told 1 week it's this restriction, next week it's that restriction. So it does weary people down. I suppose listening to both Laura and Ashley, particularly about the young people, I suppose I'm wondering, now's the time to be planning how to land on the far side of this in a way that does mitigate some of the loss that you know, we're talking about children and young people, I guess, have experienced, but the losses that everybody has experienced in different ways. So you're really getting me thinking, and I'm sure other people in the group thinking about, let's be a bit more proactive than wait until June and then going, all right, what do we do now? You know, now's the time to be thinking about it. Which is a nice seg into an opportunity that Jackie Hagan will tell you about. And maybe Jacqueline, you want to introduce yourself and tell people about your role and then the opportunity of the Legacy Project.
Hi, my name's Jacqueline. Again, I also know quite a lot of people in the room, but some are new faces. I'd like to just give a slight warning. I have a rogue cat that's just running around here like mad, so apologies if there's any noise in the background. The opportunity I'm going to speak about, actually, you have to give thanks to Ashley, because she's really helped kind of design this in a way that works for young people. The Legacy programme, we are going to start promoting the recruitment for that tomorrow. And it is a 3-week training and personal development programme taking place in March, aimed at young people aged 18 to 24 from East Belfast who are not currently in full-time employment or education. The training focuses on outdoor activities and outdoor roles, so things that might be really kind of relevant to working in those kind of areas, things like walk leader training, environmental activities, bike maintenance, cycle leader training, manual handling, so real practical skills that will get them outdoors. Unfortunately, we are going to do some of the training online, but I'm still hopeful that we will get the group outside in March, even if it's towards the end of March, and get them doing something a bit active as well. The idea, we hope that this programme, for a lot of things, but will support young people to kind of be a bit more active, to get outdoors, to see what they can do, to see that there are jobs and opportunities, or even just volunteering roles that are available for them to get outside and get active and see the benefit of that on their mental health and their physical health. We also hope that this will use the Connswater Community Greenway as a way to reconnect young people to the community and to that space. It's really important for us that we get their voices heard. At the end of this, and the reason we've called it the Legacy Programme, is that it's not just a 3-week training. We're going to continue to work with those young people for at least a year, but hopefully longer, whether that's through volunteering opportunities or other ways. And through this, we hope to create ambassadors and advocates of the Greenway, and young people who can then be peer mentors for other young people in the area and show them what can be used, what this asset can be used for them. It'll also give us a chance to talk to them, as Ashley says, about what the Greenway is for them and what it could be. So yes, the recruitment process will go out tomorrow, and we're hoping to identify some young people who could really benefit from this.
And Jackie, how do people get in touch with you about it?
I'm going to send out, so we're first and foremost, we're emailing this out to the Youth Practitioners Forum and local youth workers, but then we'll send it out to wider groups and community organisations. It's really just to email me. There's a really short one-page registration form, not to kind of assess people or give them anything complicated to fill in, but just to get a bit of an idea about who they are. So it's a one-page registration form, but any information can just come through myself.
Brilliant. And it fits very well with the overall aim of making it a sustainable greenway, because we want everybody to own it, and the young people are the guardians of the future. So it's really important to get them involved. I promised our speakers that we'd give them the last word this evening. So I literally want a sentence from each of them. Having heard each other and seeing all your beautiful faces and reading your comments, just maybe a parting shot from each of you. And then I would like 20 seconds to tell you about our next webinar. So Laura, then John, then Linda, then Ashley, if you'd like to go in that order. Laura.
I think the key to well-being, I think represented by all of us, is get out there, smile at each other, be kind, and we'll get through it, all of us. Brilliant.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that's come through is the importance of human connection. And as the restrictions lift, I think the Greenway has enabled people to see and meet each other. I think that's vitally important. And also the secret of listening. The best way to make connection and relationships is to ask questions and listen to one another. And I think that will benefit everyone.
Lovely. Thank you, John. And Linda?
I think for me, it's be as kind to yourself as you are as kind to your best friend. And that's very difficult to do, but I would encourage you to do it. And I will try and do it too.
Beautiful. Thank you. Ashley?
I think for me, it's let's listen to young people, let's learn from young people. And if you haven't been on TikTok, go on, you'll have a laugh and get creative.
I could see East Belfast TikTok videos coming on here, Ashley. It could be really hilarious, actually. So look, thank you very much. Lots of nice feedback from everyone on the session this evening. Our next session is the 19th of February, 6:30 to 7:30. And this time it's on the topic of, we're calling it capacity building and social entrepreneurship. But I suppose it's addressing that issue about the economic issues that we're going to be facing coming out of this, and maybe giving people ideas about how to, maybe get ways of building their own capacity and skills, or thinking about social enterprises possibilities, just stimulating our imaginations about how to do that. So as Linda says, be kind to yourselves, enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. Thursday's the best night of the week because we've got weekends all ahead of us, folks. So hope you get out. Hope you get fresh air, exercise, be sociable, and express yourselves in terms of your sense of purpose. So thank you everybody very much. Good night.